I was a commercial diver at Ecomar, who was a company that harvested mussels off of oil platforms in Southern California. I did that for a couple of years, and then I wanted to continue my education, and I went off to University of Ireland, and I studied there for a year for my master's degree in fisheries management, development, and conservation. I came back to Santa Barbara, and the community said, we need some where are the local mussels? And they started asking me if I could start producing the local mussels. I found this woman who knew how to spawn mussels, and we gave it a try. We put mussels on rope, and we put them on the lease, and they grew exceptionally well. Most shellfish production happens in backwater environments, intertidal environments, in bays and estuaries. But by growing them out in the ocean with a high flow, a lot of those situations are alleviated. Okay, so this is the deep, deep, deep ocean. In relation to the long line, it's not very deep at all. And so here's 80 feet of water depth, and then you have a 700-foot long line. You saw these 4 surface floats, and that's what's holding up this long line that sits 20 feet below the surface. And then the ropes are hanging below that, about 10 feet. For me, it's a very creative process because you have this blank piece of ocean, and you really have to think of a way, well, how am I going to do this? And so you're constantly changing the way you think and do things all the time, depending on the set of conditions that you have. Nothing has to be the way it is.
Community Seafood is a boat-to-table kind of program. They're generally known as community-supported fishery programs, where you have a group of fishermen, however large, 30 to 40 guys who all work with one person to bring in the catch, and then that person connects them with their larger community. Having Bernard as one of our fishermen to provide fresh, incredibly sustainable product is really amazing. It's not only that Bernard provides an incredible product, both black mussels, and he used to do Pacific oysters, which were incredible, but it's also that he's the only local guy doing it.
Bernard's been a real innovator in terms of developing local techniques for food production in our coastal ocean. And there are a lot of places around the world where we've done a lot of coastal aquaculture, but California has not been a leader in that area, and Bernard's been kind of a real trendsetter here locally in showing that there are ways to produce a really great seafood product in a way that has low environmental impacts on the coastal ocean.
We are bringing in 90% of our seafood comes from everywhere else, and we're not keeping up with our demand. And so obviously at some point something's going to give, and we're going to need to produce more seafood.
If we look out into the future in terms of the demand for food, we see a huge increase in the demand for animal protein over the next 35 years or so. And it comes from 2 things. One is more people. We're going to go up to somewhat over 9 billion people in that time frame. And the other is growth in wealth of people, particularly in the developing world. Those 2 things in combination mean that we project about an 80% increase in the global demand for animal protein by 2050. That is a whopping increase in demand for food.
Far and away, if you're talking efficiency-wise, if you're talking about the ability to create a sustainable protein, fish is it. There's just no contest. When you talk about water consumption, when you talk about energy, when you talk about fuel consumption, transportation costs, you can't get a more efficient source of protein and a healthier version than seafood. So that really needs to become a priority of the American diet, and right now it's not.
He's on the boat now 3 days a week, and then in the fall it'll be every day or almost every day. He never has a free moment, really. I mean, on the weekend he has to force himself to take some time, away. Hi, Coral. How are you? Hey.
Oh, the writing instructor. She was yelling at him, right?
I used to help him on the boat a lot, on his old boat, which was pretty funny. Sometimes he would have to do dives, more just as like a safety person, because it's not easy to be down there. My kids, like Nico, was saying these really big words at a really young age. They're just verbal. These two are verbal.
Now this is me.
This cheese?
I like
Squirrel, you don't want to eat a mussel? No. I know it's mussel.
Even from day one, he's been really optimistic and positive and determined that this is going to work, and that's how he's gotten as far as he's gotten.
One of the important things to know, first of all, is that this farm is the only open ocean farm in all of California. So this is it. And the reason why it is so is because the regulations are extremely complex. It's very hard for anyone to figure out. I myself have not figured it out. There's a whole bureaucracy of government agencies that anyone operating in the ocean has to go through, such as the Coastal Commission, the Department of Public Health, the Regional Water Quality Board, U.S. Army Corps of Engineering, Department of Fish and Wildlife. I have to contact the Coast Guard. For a farmer like myself, to do that is overwhelming. That's the challenge for me, is to get completely legitimate. And even though I thought I was legitimate, it turns out I'm not. Even though I have permits from 1986, basically those permits are invalid. So I'm getting basically completely all new, modern day 2014 permits.
So in 2006, the state legislature passed a new law called the Sustainable Oceans Act, which regulates aquaculture in state waters. If there's a project that predated this law, then they already have some permits and they're already operating. And so if they wanted to modify or expand their operation, then they may have to do some additional environmental assessment.
It's just really so sad that we thought everything was great and we had it all in order, and then just your business is going well and you're finally feel like you're getting making something out of it, and then you find out, oh, you don't have the right permit. Yeah, it's devastating, and it would be devastating to think if this was all for naught.
My argument with a lot of these government agencies that want to charge me a fortune to do all these studies is that it's forcing me to spend a ton of money to get my permits, and it's forcing the issue that in order to recoup my investment, I'm really going to have to get out there and get my 72 acres under production.
And there are a lot of potential impacts for putting a farm out in the middle of the ocean. First of all, it depends on what kind of fish you're farming. You've got parasites and disease that could be transmitted into the ocean, and so a lot of water pollution concerns, a lot of concerns about habitat disruption. A lot of potential impacts.
You grow in an area that has very little economic value and also very little ecological value. I mean, it's over a sand bottom. It's in a place that nobody else really uses to fish for other seafood. It's an environment that is not sensitive at all.
We've dumped a lot of nutrients. We've fertilized the coastal ocean in a very big way. And in some cases, this has led to really big increases in the bloom of plankton that can have lots of negative impacts, including if it gets too big of a bloom, you can actually develop dead zones. When we grow mussels in the ocean, they're feeding off of plankton and detrital materials that are in the water. And so to the extent that you can grow mussels in places where we've artificially increased the blooms of plankton, we actually may be providing an environmental benefit by reducing those plankton levels back down to a level that would be more appropriate for that particular habitat. If you talk to most people on the street, there's a lot of concern about environmental impacts of aquaculture. And this is one of those things where oftentimes public discussion, I think, of problems like this are not well informed about the whole scope of the problem. And so this is one where, for some reason, the environmental impacts of aquaculture have had a lot of public attention. Yet they're not put in a level playing field analysis where we look at what are those impacts compared to the comparable impacts from other forms of meat production.
I think we're coming to a new age of food consciousness. And I think that people are realizing that when you get food directly from the source, whether it be your farmer, your fisherman, your rancher, you're going to get a higher quality product. And it's going to be a more efficient choice, a more environmentally friendly choice. So if at all possible, locate your farm. It's not that hard in California. It's very easy to eat local, and it's a definitely much better choice, not only for yourself as an individual, but also for your community and the environment around you.
Fresh harvested yesterday, 24 hours old, grown with love. I have been coming to the Santa Barbara Farmers Market for a number of years, and I tried Bernard's mussels being grown locally. I could taste the ocean, the freshness, the crispness. They're just a wonderful, sustainable shellfish to eat that it doesn't get any better than being in Santa Barbara here. Are you folks need some mussels? You need some oysters? All right. There we go. Come on over here. I'll give you a private showing. So you're going to be around next week? Yeah? Okay. And you can try it out and you tell me how you like it. Come back next week. We'll have a cigarette. We'll talk it over. Okay? We won't smoke. That's an expression from a movie. So very good. Very tasty.
You know, I became a shellfish farmer and a parent. I have 2 kids. What I take home with my kids and what happens out there, it's just the same thing. You know, it's just like I spend an amazing day out there, and then I come home and I spend an amazing day just discovering what my children are all about, and watching and learning and having fun with them. And you know, all kinds of crap happens at the same time. And, you know, and you just work through that. You know, so you know, as a parent, you know, we always try to parent through our own eyes and our own ideas, but the reality is you really just need to listen to your children better and discover who they are and what they are all about, right, as a parent. And that's what you do. That's what I do as a shellfish farmer. I try to listen to what the ocean is telling me, what the mussels are doing out there, and I try to discover what the actual farming is all about, and not to have a preconceived notion of what it is. but more of what it isn't and what it could be. And that's what parenting is all about. That's what becoming a shellfish farmer is all about. Just getting out there, having children, putting a shellfish farm out there, and just discovering, this sort of miracle of life, what's going on out there. It's amazing.
You're leaving them all to go find yourself. Oh, can bring him along. It's too far from what he knows. Run. You fought the voice inside for now quite some time. But is it enough? Should you fall far from it all?